Hi, my name is Erin.n.Simon. I'm a published author and the CEO of Inspired and Spirit Publishing. I am diligently working on a platform that encourages writers to not only write, but to be able to complete their manuscripts and to pursue publishing. In my journey, you have no idea, whenever I tell people that I'm an author, they always respond back, I want to write a book. I thought about writing a book. I have a partial manuscript. I don't think my story is good enough to publish. I don't have the support that I need in order to see if my story is any good. I've tried to get agents, on and on and on and on and on. There's always an excuse, and basically it just boils down to a lack of support that is preventing a lot of people from pursuing publishing, from finishing their manuscripts. Sometimes it's even just a lack of confidence within the writer. I published 4 books in 4 years. My first book is a series. It is the Interruption series. It's Interruption Shay Search, Interruption Interlude, Interruption Alter Ego. My fourth work is going to be a new series, completely different from the first. It is Undercover and Under the Covers, starring Detective Aja Anderson. Right now I'm working on the second installment to that series. It will be available December of 2017 because my goal is to publish one work every single year. My goal here is to help you publish your work this year, or maybe even sooner, or if it takes us until 2018, let's do that. But first, let's try to troubleshoot all of the things that are preventing you from moving forward in your manuscript. Today's topic is called Just Right. I get a lot of people who ask me, how do you get your works done like that? I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I work, I have all of these different things that I do, and I always find time to write. It's very important. So the first tidbit would be just write. When you have an idea, when you have a story, what you want to do is you want to find the time to sit down and write every single thing that you see in your mind's eye. So what do you see? What does your character look like? What is your character doing? How is your character doing it? Is your character talking to someone else? What do they look like? What is the relationship between the first character and the second character? Why is their relationship like that? What could possibly move forward from this point? And as you see, when you start to ask yourself all of those questions, you have at least a chapter or two of story. What kind of emotions are involved in what you're seeing with your character or characters? You want to ask yourself as many questions as possible from the scene that's taking place in your mind's eye in order to try to begin to move forward and have a story develop. The second tidbit is just write. Don't edit, don't fix, don't perfect. Don't try to do anything but to write until you can't write anymore. A lot of times we have writers who they'll write the first chapter of their story and they'll try to edit it and perfect it and make it great, and they never make it to chapter 2. Or they do that for the first 3 chapters and never move past that. It's okay if your idea in the beginning is a mess. It's better to have a mess to fix later than to not have any content at all to edit, to fix, to reconstruct, and so on and so forth. Another tip is meditate on your story daily. If you are working on a story and you are consciously meditating on that story, you have your characters before you, you have your scenes before you, it's easier for your story to begin to develop because you are consciously working on them all day long. I narrate in my head all day. If I'm working on a work, during my quiet moments, when I'm washing dishes, folding clothes, when I cook, when I iron, if I'm at the doctor's office and I'm waiting, if I take the kids to the pediatrician and we're waiting, I am constantly narrating my story in my mind. I am taking my characters into scenarios and I am performing what I refer to as the butterfly effect. I'm taking my character in this direction. My character made this decision. How does my character respond? How does my character respond? How does my character react? Is it a viable solution in order to move on, to drive the story, to continue driving the story to the main plot? Sometimes it's not a viable solution and I have to bring the character back and go in a different direction. But I'm constantly writing. When you're out during the day, you would be shocked at the activities that you engage in during the day, how they can inspire you and inspire your story. You may see a lady reach into the garbage to grab something out, and that is a key piece in your plot. The UPS guy dropping off a package, might just kind of spark something like, yes, I'm going to add this to my subplot in the story, and it's going to turn out to be whatever it turns out to be. So basically, consciously meditating on your work will encourage you to continue writing, to continue developing the story, to continue developing your characters, to continue developing your theme. Um, do, 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 do. One other thing, dialogue. I do my dialogue out loud. When I do my dialogue out loud, it provides auditory reinforcement, meaning I can hear the initial statement and then I can hear the response or the reaction to that statement. When I do it out loud, I'm better able to capture the emotion that goes with it in order to elicit a response from my reader when I'm writing my stories. I know people are like, oh, you sound crazy. I feel self-conscious about doing that. When you're at home, when you're in your car, when you're in spaces where it's just you, do your dialogue out loud. Does it sound realistic? Does it elicit a response from the reader? Is it something that is going to really drive my story? Is it driving the plot? Is it climactic? Is it anticlimactic? Is it flat? Does this statement not really capture what I want my character to sound like? How I want my character to respond? How I want my character to react? So one of my suggestions is to really do your dialogue out loud. Let it be like, it's just you. And believe it or not, once you do it once or twice, you actually get really good at it. You can almost kind of be as great as an actor or an actress, where you're really like, you're driving your story. You are the author. You understand what this scene is, what this scene means. One of the things I'm going to mention, and I'm going to do a video for that later, is that there's no small talk in your work. When you're writing fiction works, there's no small talk. There's no, hey, I'm going to order a Big Mac with cheese and soda. Dialogue is to reveal something to the reader. Dialogue is for the reader to see the interaction between a character and other characters, a character and their setting, their timeline, their background. Sometimes the thoughts are evoked by the character to the reader, and you really want to capture the proper emotion. You really want to capture the proper reaction. You really want to capture the proper response. So I would suggest that you do your dialogue out loud. All of these little suggestions that I'm giving you help you with writer's block, because you're continuously finding ways to develop your story. Write often. All writers experience writer's block. It's not necessarily a great excuse as to why you're not getting your writing done. There's actually a lot of proactive things you can do when you do experience writer's block and you really can't move forward with your story because you need time to think about how you can better develop either the characters, the plot, the subplots, the theme, so on and so forth. Reread the story. When you reread it, what is your character or characters doing? Why are they doing it? What's going to happen because of it? And sometimes when you start to ask yourself when you ask yourself these questions about the story, it'll help you to kind of move past whatever that obstacle is that's keeping you from moving forward. How will they respond to it or react to it? How does this impact the characters? How does it impact their environment, their background, their timeline, their past, their present, their future? How does it impact the story overall? Does it drive the story in the right direction? Sometimes when you start asking those questions, you realize that this isn't going in the direction that I had envisioned it. This isn't going in the direction that I want it to go in. So when you start asking yourself these questions, you can kind of revision what's happening with your story. Work on your character profiles. If you can't actively work on the manuscript itself, you are able to actually sit down with your characters. The more you know about your characters, the better you can have them engage with one another, engage with their situation, engage with the plot, the subplot, so on and so forth. Work on your subplots. I'm taking one scene and I'm working on that one scene, and then I can kind of review later how that one scene ties into the main plot itself. If you can't do any of that, the manuscript that you have before you, clean it up. Do you have run-on sentences? Did you open your quotes? Did you close them? For those of you who don't know what that means, is when you have dialogue, which dialogue is a new paragraph, so it's basically a new line indented. Did you put the quote in the beginning and the quote at the end of that dialogue? It's easy to kind of run through your manuscript and accidentally, miss one of your open quotes or your closed quotes. It's easy for you to do run-on sentences. You were just kind of typing at the time, trying to get it down. Now you can look at it and realize, okay, this is the run-on sentence. It needs to be 2 sentences. I have a dangling participle. That's for your more advanced writer. You definitely want to fix those. Do you notice redundancy in your writing? Do you use the same word or a few words over and over and over and over again? Can you sit down with a thesaurus, which is very important for writers to have with them, in order to kind of reduce redundancy? The other good thing about a thesaurus, and this is very important, is that the thesaurus will give you the definition of the word that you're using, so that even though you're using a different word, it's telling you the definition of the word in order to use it in the proper context. Very, very important, because sometimes people want to get fancy with their writing. We get caught up in the art of writing, and you're utilizing these big fancy words that are not put in the proper context. So you want to kind of not do that. Do you use the same phrase over and over and over again? Like, I looked into her eyes. I looked into the case. I looked into what she was telling me. And you can see just by me describing these things how you can use one phrase over and over and over and over again, and it becomes a weird pattern in your work. Have you explained something one too many times? Usually, let's say you have a scene and you're explaining the situation that you're having in the scene in your work. You don't want to turn around and explain that scene to someone utilizing dialogue. The readers already saw the scene. The reader already knows what happened. There's no sense in one character now explaining it in detail to another character. That's redundancy. I write every single day. If you just absolutely cannot get to your manuscript, I suggest journaling. It'll help you to basically practice articulating your thoughts on paper. I think it's very important. Great writers read a lot. Your best writers are usually avid readers. They read all sorts of works and genres and articles and published journals, and it's really important. The more you read, I think personally, the better you are at your craft, because you begin to basically recognize writing styles. You're able to develop, you're seeing how other writers develop their characters, how they develop their backgrounds, their timelines, their settings, their themes, the tone of the story, the pacing of the story. So I also suggest that you try to maybe get in a little bit more reading. It'll also help you understand if you're doing your own manuscript and you're not getting any assistance. The more you read, when you do your writing, you recognize how your writing is supposed to be displayed. You understand that your dialogue is a new paragraph. You understand how paragraphs are set up. You understand page breaks and how those are set up. And I'm going to be doing videos going into all of these little things for those who are not as experienced in their writing, but want to begin to take that on to gain the experience, to gain the skill. That's all. See you later.